Hey everybody, we're back with part 8 here. I want to backtrack just a little bit and go to, excuse me, verse 13 where it speaks of Nebuchadnezzar being in a rage and fury and commanding that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought to him because they did not fall down and worship his image. Well, here we see how furious he got about it, and he had them brought to him, and they told him, "We are not careful to answer thee in this matter," because they had every confidence that they believed in the one true living God, and that no matter what happened, they were in God's hands and he was in control. That unshakable faith we talked about a few videos back. But the thing I wanted to bring us up to right here, by going back and backtracking a little bit, is we see how he had them brought to him, and when he seen that he could not put fear in them or sway them in their belief in their God, his reaction to that, because they would not be swayed, because it says, "We will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." That's what they told Nebuchadnezzar. So then the next verse says in verse 19, "Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." Well, I looked up a few words here. Form is talking about one's appearance, and visage means what is seen, what is visible. It makes me wonder if what we're seeing here is indicating when Satan will actually enter into the man of perdition. And of course we know that when the Antichrist sets up his image and demands that everyone worship his image, that is when everything starts to change, because the first half of the tribulation is about this man that wins everyone's confidence. And then the next half of the tribulation is where his true colors come shining through, and the worst horror of the tribulation takes place. But I'm thinking here, this is representative, because he's setting up the image and demanding people worship, of what happens at the middle of the tribulation. And is this giving us an indication of when Satan actually enters into this man and rules through him? Because after looking up these words, it made it clear to me that there was a visible change in this man, in his form. And it goes beyond the rage that we see over in verse 13. Anyway, we read on down through here just a little bit. Let's see. "After the form of his visage was changed, he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats." Of course, it's talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego still had their garments on, and they were thrown into the furnace. In verse 22, it says, "Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent," so they did things hastily and in a rush, "the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." Well, here we see how God, and we see this in scriptures, not right offhand, I can't recall, but I've read it on several occasions. It's in some of the Old Testament prophetic books. I'm thinking maybe Isaiah, Ezekiel, I'm not sure exactly. But where God uses their own devices against them as they try to bring harm to those that follow Him. And, God says in the scriptures that He will do that. And this is a clear picture of that, because this fire slew the very men that had took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up and threw them into the furnace. Well, the next thing that we take note of is how Nebuchadnezzar, looking into the furnace, didn't see 3 men, but he saw 4. And that's in verse 25. He says, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. So here we see that in the midst of this fire, this great trial, this tribulation, so to speak, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had been thrust into, the fire of it all. And see, this is also a clear indication of how hot this got. See, once the Antichrist, at the midpoint, like I said, the last half, it is the worst part. And here we see an example of that by this fire being stoked up so hot. And that God was in the midst of those that put their faith in Him. Now, He was in the midst with them, in the midst of the fire, in the midst of the trial. And the people that are here in the tribulation, I wish, it was some way to convey all this to them, that it's going to be about how strong you cling to the trust that you have in Almighty God. But anyway, I'm going to stop right here, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do another part on this or not. I'm feeling like this is the most important parts that needed to be brought out. If I make another, you'll see it on this particular thing. But I've got a whole lot of other stuff I've got to get into that the Lord's pressing me on. So you're going to see some other videos, maybe not on this particular subject. But I thank you for listening. And I hope that it's not been a bore to you, because sometimes I go the long way around the mountain. I don't mean to. But anyway, God bless y'all. Bye-bye.